Okay, hello everyone. This is Sam at the National Weather Service. We'll go ahead and get started with our 11 o'clock briefing. A couple things to talk about this week. Generally, we're going to remain unsettled for the next couple days into the weekend. We have a backdoor cold front dropping south across the area this morning. And that front will kind of waver across the area tomorrow, potentially lifting back north. Kind of show a visualization of this in a couple minutes, but overall this is bringing off and on chances for rain and generally cooler temperatures, and those cooler temperatures are especially across the northern half of the area. As I mentioned, we have an unsettled pattern that will persist into the weekend, and then really all eyes are going to be on the later part of the weekend into early next week with a potential coastal storm that's looking likely now to develop, but really the impacts from that coastal low are very uncertain still at this time. The temperatures are really looking like they're going to be warmer than they have been with our past winter threats. But as the precipitation ends, Monday morning, there's a at least a decent chance that some areas change over to snow. But as I mentioned, all the specific impacts, any kind of snowfall amounts, generally remain, very low confidence at this time. But I will dive a little deeper into that in a couple minutes. But on the marine side, we do have some marine fog out there, and with that front nearby, that should continue into tomorrow. And then we kind of have a lull with lighter winds through early Sunday, and then with that coastal low, likely get good shot at some gale conditions as that low pressure strengthens. So taking a look at our weather pattern coming up for the next couple days. For today, take a look at that frontal boundary draped across the area, bringing chances for rain. Really the milder temperatures will be confined south of the front. So really southern and southwest portions of our forecast area look most likely to warm up today. But then, north of the boundary, Central Virginia on the eastern shore, probably staying steady or even dropping temperatures through today. As we get into tomorrow, as I mentioned, we still have that front nearby. It should maybe lift north a little bit, potentially bringing some milder conditions back to the area. And then it really kind of pushes south Saturday, but doesn't look too chilly. And also doesn't look too wet either on Saturday. And then we get that low pressure system that starts in the deep south Saturday, and then as it moves offshore, begins to deepen Sunday, and then by Monday it's a pretty strong system pulling away from our coast. So for the rainfall over the next 3 days, so this encompasses generally through Saturday, but really doesn't capture most of the Sunday into Monday system. So, beneficial rainfall, generally from a ½ inch up to an inch, with locally, lower amounts for Southern Virginia and then Northeast North Carolina. But I will show here just a quick look at some of the rainfall timing. So we kind of just have that with that front nearby, just kind of waves of precip today. So going into this afternoon, could get another push of some showers, which could be moderate to locally heavy this afternoon, continuing into the evening. And then by tonight, potentially we dry out a bit, and then we have another system, another shot at rain tomorrow. Generally tomorrow morning into the early afternoon, and then drying out for the latter half of Friday. So, as I mentioned, just a couple shots at rain next couple days, but shouldn't amount to too much. But as I mentioned, up to an inch possible. And that's kind of captured here, and then after that, we'll see the additional precip from the coastal low, which is highest along the coast. So shifting gears now into that Sunday into Monday system. as of now, we're just highlighting, some potential impacts, potential minor impacts from snowfall, with the warmer temperatures and the uncertainty as of now. But really the best shot at any impacts from snowfall as of now seem to be kind of confined to the northern neck, the eastern shore, and then especially the lower Maryland eastern shore, with lower chances extending south and southwest into central Virginia, and then as well as down into southeast Virginia. But definitely not non-zero down this way, but lower chances for snow down here. As I mentioned, kind of the evolution is we kind of get rain most of Sunday, and then as that low kind of begins to deepen, it pulls in some colder air from the north, and potentially changing over to snow, and then that would be the best time for any accumulation should that occur. As I mentioned, this is really kind of highly dependent on where the low sets up, how strong it is. If it's closer to the coast and stronger, it could really, pull in some colder air from the north and potentially lead to some higher snowfall amounts. But, if the system is flatter and kind of just scoots out to sea, isn't as strong, probably won't remain, mainly rain for the area. This is the probability for 2 inches of snow or greater, at the current moment. So that kind of aligns well with this past map here. So really the highest probabilities and chances are up here on the eastern shore, between a 40 and 50% chance, roughly 50-50 up this way for at least 2 inches, and then, gradually dropping off as we get further south and southwest. Just with the marginal temperatures, which I'll show shortly here, the accumulation will probably be limited to the grassy and elevated surfaces. Unless we get some really heavy snow, it'll be pretty difficult to accumulate on the roads, but, we'll keep monitoring all that data as it comes in over the next couple days. And then, as of now, it just mainly looks like minor travel impacts. And then here we have a look at the, potential timing of the rainfall, and then also the, mixed precipitation, and also, potentially the snow. So, starting out Sunday with a, low chance of rain. So we have our chance of rain here in the middle, and that really ramps up as we get into the afternoon and especially the evening. So, by the afternoon and evening, we have, 80 to 90, 70 to 90% chance of rain, or, not rain, precipitation. But, as we can see, really the highest chances of rain are when we generally have just a precipitation type of rain, or rain and snow. As the colder air begins to move in, that's also when the system will be pulling away. So, there's a good shot some areas change over to snow, but, as mentioned before, the drier air moving in behind the system, the precipitation chances drop off, as we're changing to snow. So, and then temperature wise, we, go through Sunday, pretty good shot. We warm up into the 40s for most areas. And then it's really dependent on that coastal low bringing in some cooler temperatures and, potentially some heavier precipitation rates to bring the temperature down. And, as we see, they really only drop into the lower to mid 30s Sunday night into Monday. So I will bring this over here to give a better idea, just the precipitation type and timing over the next couple days. So, for today, off and on waves of rain, and we get that system tomorrow morning, as I was kind of showing earlier, and then, drying out Friday night into Saturday. And then, during the day, Saturday should be drier for most of the area. Potentially get a little bit of shower activity that tries to push into Northeast North Carolina and Southern Virginia, especially Saturday afternoon. But again, that really doesn't look like too much in the way of rainfall Saturday. And then as we get into Sunday, we kind of get a system that, approaches from the west. And then once it, reaches the coast is when the low pressure system really starts to get going. So initially rain for the entire area Sunday. And then, by 4 p.m., potentially some cooler air filtering in. And then that's when we could change over at least to a rain snow mix for the central Virginia, the northern neck up on the eastern shore. And as we get to 10 o'clock, at this point, the low should be pretty strong, generally out in this area. And we get the colder air filtering in, then that's when we could change over to all snow. And then that would, potentially rotate all the way down the coast towards southeast Virginia. But again, really the main focus as of now is from the northern neck to the eastern shore, and then especially the lower Maryland eastern shore up that way. And then by Monday, the system pulls away and should be drying out pretty quickly. Let's see, temperature-wise, next couple days, it will definitely be cooler for northern areas today. As I mentioned, temperatures are dropping with the front dropping south, so most of these highs for today have already been seen. And then, warming up a bit tomorrow with the front lifting back north, so areas across the south could especially get into the 70s. And then, seasonably mild for Saturday, and then high temperatures generally in the 40s, Sunday through Wednesday of next week. And then I've kind of talked quite a bit already about the chances of rain next couple days, but beyond Monday, there's a pretty good shot that we turn back to the less unsettled and just drier. So in terms of the temperature outlook, we have generally above normal temperatures favored, and then also above normal precipitation. And we still do have drought for most of the area. This was updated this morning. So, pretty much most of the area is in a moderate drought, with just a couple areas in a just tagged as abnormally dry. But definitely some beneficial rain coming, which hopefully can begin to make somewhat of a dent into our drought conditions here. Shifting gears to the marine side, so with that low pressure system developing offshore, we are expecting some at least potential for gale conditions, particularly on the coastal waters and on the Chesapeake Bay, with the northerly winds increasing to 25 to 35 knots, with gusts at least up to 40 knots, potentially a little bit higher. And then the sea should build at least 6 to 9 feet, and then 4 to 6 feet in the Chesapeake Bay, with the highest waves near 6 feet at the mouth of the bay. In terms of timing those winds, they should increase, at least begin to increase Sunday afternoon, and then really the strongest winds are expected Sunday night into Monday morning. So this goes through 7 p.m. Sunday, so it doesn't totally capture the coastal low, but it does show the winds ramping up Sunday afternoon into the evening, with potentially some gusts approaching 34, 35 knots by Sunday evening. But again, really the main potential for gales are after that for Sunday night into Monday morning, with gusts potentially over 40 knots for a couple areas around midnight Sunday into Monday. Outside of that, really the winds today should be light, relatively light out of the east, and then should kind of shift back to the south tomorrow as that front lifts back north. And then really light winds for Saturday. And then again, really our focus is from Sunday afternoon into most of Monday into the first part of Tuesday. and then looking like we kind of return back to normal or more benign conditions by the middle of next week. And then, as I mentioned, also before, the seas will build as well as the waves in the bay. So, 4 to 6 feet, peak waves in the Chesapeake Bay, and then also increasing quite a bit offshore with the low pressure system developing out that way. Okay, so that's all I have for today's briefing. I will stop the recording and can take any questions if there are any.